Well, hi there. I'm Dan Jones. Welcome to Interchange. Thanks so much for joining us. Tonight, we're going to talk about President Obama's speech to Congress about health care the other night. Did he accomplish what he set out to accomplish? We'll talk about the anniversary of the September 11th attack on America. What do you think has changed about this country in the past 8 years? We'll talk about Walter Ellis, the Milwaukee man now charged with killing at least 7 women over a 20-year period. And we'll talk about who won the most in the battle between Mercury Marine and its union workers. All right, joining me tonight are Joel McNally, newspaper columnist and host of the Morning Magazine program on AM 1290. Kevin Fisher, aide to Republican State Senator Mary Lozick and oftentimes WISN radio host. Denise Calloway, communications director for the Greater Milwaukee Foundation. And Gerard Randall, longtime job creation expert. Rick Horowitz will be along with commentary at the end of the show. All right, there are all these media reports now about how the Democrats are all united once again and how they'll push hard to give President Obama the universal health care plan that he wants passed. This follows his speech the other night, a speech interrupted by one congressman calling Obama a liar and another congressman, this one from Illinois, standing up and walking out. Why doesn't this president command the respect, Denise, that so many other presidents have?
Well, I think if you go back, I think if we take a look actually at the last 2 presidents as well, Clinton and Bush, there seems to be that erosion of respect for the office. So I think it is heightened for various different reasons with this particular president, but I think there's been an erosion of respect for the office, really, for the past 2 presidents.
Kevin, I'm not a big Obama fan, as you know, but I think you do have to have a respect for the office. Why couldn't the guy just shut up for an hour, sit down, and then when Obama was done talking, say whatever he wanted to the media?
That would have been ideally the appropriate procedure to take. He was out of line. He knows it. He apologized immediately. The president accepted his apology, and we should move on. But both sides are trying to make some political hay out of it in the form of raising cash now. I think it's overblown. He shouldn't have done it. I think there was some truth to what he said, though. But the Democrats are hyperventilating and seem to have a memory loss because President Bush was heckled and booed and hissed during some of his State of the Union addresses. So there's been a lack of decorum on both sides. I think this is an overhyped story. I think we should move on. But yes, there should be more decorum, especially there. Sit, listen to what the president has to say, applaud if you wish, keep your hands on your lap if you care to go that route, and then afterwards find the nearest CNN camera and vent.
That's well, Kevin, you're absolutely right, because it's not as if...
You are absolutely right.
It's not as if there wasn't going to be an opportunity with lots of television cameras there for him to make whatever kind of comments that he made. It was inappropriate, it was immature, and it made the particular congressman look small. But and nobody wins when you do something like that.
He's not the villain of the century, though, that he's being vilified to be.
You know, you wonder if we're moving closer to like those pictures you see in the Korean and Japanese politics where they're slugging each other and yelling at each other.
I don't think we've gotten that far. I don't even think we're approaching the British parliamentary style where they're certainly more prone to heckling and shouting down the speaker or whoever happens to have the floor at the time.
It's usually a wrestling match, the British Parliament.
It is. It's pretty raucous. I think, though, that overall it didn't help the president in terms of getting focus back onto the elements of the conversation that he wanted to have with the American people. And that is where health care should go for this country. The pieces that I thought the president presented well were the pieces around how we're going to deliver health care to the millions of people who have pre-existing conditions that need affordable health care. I think he was also right to talk about portability and that there's a need for people to be able to carry their insurance policies with them when they change from job to job. Where he lacked credibility, and I think this is the piece where a lot of the name-calling did happen once people got in front of the CNN or Fox cameras, is around how you're going to pay for it. And that was, I think, the biggest element of the speech that the president didn't win on. Was the pay for it. Well, what he did say, though, didn't foster any kind of sincerity on his part because people just didn't believe it.
Did he persuade anybody, or was he just talking to the choir?
He was uniting his party, and what really united his party was the ugliness of the Republicans out there. What Kevin said is absolutely false. There has never been a speech given to joint houses of Congress where any politician called the President of the United States a liar. There's never been such an incident. There's also never been such an incident where a President of the United States spoke to the school children of America and was attacked. There has never been an incident where the President of the United States showed up to make speeches around the country about health care and people showed up with automatic assault weapons. That has never happened before. And if you can have this conversation about why this president is being treated differently and not mention race, you're ignoring just the obvious. The absolute obvious. The Republicans, it is a failed strategy. This ugly, grumpy old men attack and denigrate, try to turn a speech to the Congress into one of those bouts, of the town hall meetings where you show up and you lie and you scream and you think that is somehow helping you. I think that is exactly why the Democrats are united today. That is exactly why health care is going to pass, because they now know the Republicans. He was so cool. He reached out all night in that speech to Republicans. He named Republicans by name, John McCain, Orrin Hatch, others. He kept talking about how he welcomed Republican ideas. And what did he get back? Ugly screams, people holding up little homemade signs.
The president himself called people liars. The president said Sarah Palin was lying,
and he was right. He was lying.
You know what? We tend to forget. I guess maybe I tend to forget because I get old and forget.
Careful now, grumpy old man.
But the George Herbert Walker Bush was heckled by the liberal media when he went before school children to speak. They didn't like that.
I've been looking for the liberal media. I am the liberal media. I didn't heckle him.
George Walker Bush was heckled in Congress.
Yes.
In Congress yes, he was. When he
was booing his during a State of the Union address.
When he spoke about the war, he was booed in his.
Republicans always cheer Republicans and Democrats always cheer Democrats, and that has always happened. That's a very different thing than calling the President of the United States a liar, particularly when he is explaining, in fact, trying to clear up the lies, and then you stand up and say, "You're a liar? Are you kidding me?"
He said you lie.
Here's what I think the key thing is that the president was able to do. A couple of key things. He was able to articulate his plan. All of the events that took place, both in terms of how well I think he was able to articulate his plan.
He said it's my way or the highway.
And some of the comments and reactions and actions of Republicans, I think, also helped him in terms of independence. And I think that's what's going to be the difference. That's going to be the difference because those blue dog Democrats, if they know that independents are now supporting this or are more understanding of what's taking place, that's what's going to make the difference in getting this passed. It's not going to be bipartisan, but I think we've all known for the past 6 months that wasn't.
A week from now, we'll be back to the same spot we were last week.
Correct, because that blip that he might be enjoying with the red meat in his party will dissipate.
When he said Sarah Palin lied about killing senior citizens, he was telling the absolute truth, and a lot of people welcomed that
was telling the truth about Obama and illegal immigrants getting health care.
Tonight, if you say so.
All right, next topic. It's hard to believe that it's been 8 years since the attack on America. Let's talk for just a few minutes about what changes have occurred in the country because of that attack and whether those changes are for the better or for the worse.
Our lives most certainly have changed. I go back to 2000 when we were in a bit of angst about whether or not the computers were going to make the transition safely. Then we had 911, and certainly things around travel began to change, and we saw people taking more responsibility for their personal safety, but also taking the kinds of precautions that sometimes seem to be a bit outlandish. Just this week, we had hijackers that tried to overcome a Mexican airship. These are the kinds of things that I think heighten people's awareness to their own personal safety, let alone all of the economic collapse that we've had that some people would like to tie back to the 911 incident. I just think our lives have become something of a a time when people are just anxious and fearful and uncertain. And 911 helped to bring a lot of that on.
Every time you get on a plane, you're forced to think this is not the country it used to be.
Yeah, and actually, when I think of 9/11, I think of the feeling after 9/11. The way this country was united, the way the world was united behind the United States. I have said before, George Bush had an opportunity to be a great president. As limited as he is in his personal qualities, history can make great presidents. He had the opportunity because that was a once-in-a-lifetime moment when Republicans and Democrats were united in this country. The rest of the world was united behind us. And instead, he pursued very divisive policies immediately. Their immediate reaction was to use this incident to start a war that had nothing to do with 9/11. And that divided everybody again. If we could get back to that feeling, and actually Barack Obama, I thought, referred to it very well in the healthcare speech. When he was talking about the spirit of Ted Kennedy and the spirit of we're all in this together. We have to help those who are left behind. We have to look out for each other. And he said, and give him credit for this, Kevin, he said that's not a Democratic feeling, that's not a Republican feeling, it's part of the American character. But you know what? The Republican Party has decided not to pursue that. They are not being big-hearted and generous. They are being small-minded and mean.
Not partisan, just one show, please.
Small-minded and mean, and it's not working for them at all. It really isn't.
It was also a very stark reminder that there are people in this world who absolutely hate the United States.
And that will continue. I mean, there are people plotting as we speak that are trying to kill us. And we try to kowtow to them and sit down and have powwows with them, and that's not the proper route to go. I concur with everything you said, Gerard, and I would just add to that I think it's sad that, yes, we're not as united as we were post 9/11, post immediate 9/11. And that's tragic because far too many people in our country have forgotten what happened 8 years ago today. I
don't think anyone's forgotten.
I think a lot of people have. If I were in charge of this station or a cable news network, I would open up every one of my newscasts with a short film clip of what happened, of those towers going down, to remind the people that have forgotten. We become soft. I'll be partisan since you were, Joel. We have people like Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid in Washington who don't want us to even use the word terrorist. My God. It's sad, but I think we have to go back. The media wants to ignore 9/11. We're inundated with stories about Hurricane Katrina, which is fine, but that was an act of God. Why aren't we hearing the same kind of stories today about this anniversary?
We are.
Not.
We are. I think if you watch TV, it's not the same because
there aren't the rallies and vigils and candlelight events all around the country. They're not going on because we have forgotten.
They are being covered. It hasn't been forgotten. I think that all of us, I look at my 14-year-old daughter, she knew what day today was. She remembered where she was when it happened. I think what we have lost was an opportunity to see how and to take advantage of how we could be united as Americans around a cause. We have forgotten that. That's what's been forgotten. We have forgotten the power that we have in this country as Americans to bring about change and to work together and to bond together as we did at 9/11.
And why is that? Because we have vilified the good men and women who are over in Afghanistan, who are over in Iraq, fighting to keep us safe since 9/11.
No one vilifies the American military.
Goodness gracious, the media is so anti-military, it's ridiculous.
We can't unite because in some ways it's frightening for people who want to use division within the United States for their own political gains.
It's a conscious tactic, right?
Both sides of the fence. It's frightening to see how, as a country, we can come together and accomplish things that may not be what may be on the right or the left. And so I think that's why it's happened. It's a lot easier to get some of what you want if you can divide people than taking the risk of losing everything that you might do if people are united, but it's something that's better for this country.
And one party has chosen that as a tactic.
Yeah,
Not so. The
the
president did take a swipe at both wars when he mentioned that.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. He said that the wars were levied at the expense of a domestic policy and being able to pay for things like health care. He did make that statement.
He mentioned the cost, and we pay that cost.
Yeah,
Next topic.
we're still paying that cost.
Walter Ellis is now charged in connection with the killing of 7 Milwaukee women over a 20-year period. Yes, it was absolutely fantastic police work, great DNA science, but you do have to wonder how someone could get away with that many crimes, Gerard, for such a long period of time. It's not like this guy was a rocket scientist.
Many times on this show, we've mentioned that those who are disenfranchised, those that particularly the public feels commits these kinds of social crimes. The victims were prostitutes. They don't rank very high in the esteem of most ordinary citizens. And I think they were forgotten by the public, some of them forgotten by their own families. And I don't know why we would expect anything more from police who would do perhaps minimal police work in trying to find out who was responsible for their murder when the evidence didn't seem to fall in place within a certain time frame that would allow them to capture whoever it was that was responsible. I think these things get shelved because there's so much other crime that gets a priority in terms of police effort in solving them. Now we come to find out that whatever evidence may have been collected, DNA samples, for example, somehow or the other, they didn't make their way to where they were supposed to have made their way. So I think as this thing unfolds, we're going to find a lot more information about why these cases took so long to solve, whether or not there was intentional delay in being able to solve these crimes, or whether or not it was just perhaps not the kind of long-term, steady Eddie effort that right now is what we seem to believe has led to the solvings of these cases.
Kevin, you and I are huge fans of the Milwaukee Police Department, but you know darn well that if this was 7 little grade school girls...
Oh, I'm not going there.
Really?
No, I'm not going there. I'm not going to indict the Milwaukee Police Department and suggest that their motivation was, well, these are prostitutes. We are not going to vigorously, aggressively investigate this case because of who these people were. I don't think that's how the Milwaukee Police Department operates. My gosh, they clear darn near 100% of their murders.
The best departments in the country.
Yeah, and I think you had 2 elements here. You have the introduction of DNA, which is now the new nearly fail-proof evidence. You didn't have that maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago. Having said that, you have the second element. You have a Franklin police officer who's in the parking lot of I live in Franklin, in one of our very fine upscale motels there on South 27th Street, just doing a routine check on license plates, just routine, good, investigative police work, didn't involve DNA or what have you, and he was able to nab the guy. So I think rather than look for, my gosh, they didn't work hard enough because they were prostitutes, I think we should just congratulate good, hard police work in this matter, because that's what it was.
It was good police work, and I think kudos do go to that Franklin police officer who was paying attention to what was going on around him and made a real difference in terms of justice now finally coming to these families who've waited for so long. But I think, on the other hand, we do have to take a look at as a community and say, what have we learned from this case? If we can't answer what we've learned from this case and what police may take a look at differently, then I think we've lost something. Then I think there is a problem in what's happened. Granted, there were, I think Chief Flynn said, 2,000 murders in the city during this time. Still, these were 9 murders within a very close geographic area of women who had the same type of profile. I think we have to have a better understanding of what the police department did with that information. And again, moving forward, what can we learn for this in terms of the police department, and are there going to be changes, or do there need to be changes to the way in which they look at these clusters of crimes?
Is the reality that the lives of a drug-addicted hooker a group of drug-addicted hookers is less valuable to society than normal people?
Well, it's not. You don't have to be a drug-addicted hooker. There has been a history in this city of discounting, some deaths and paying a whole lot of attention to others. Whether it's based on economics, it's based on geographic location, it's based on race. I do give the Milwaukee Police Department credit and District Attorney John Chisholm credit for when, you're absolutely right, the DNA made the connection, but there were other connections, as Denise points out, the connections of some similar, ways that these people died, as well as some similar backgrounds. As I said before when we talked about this, because my wife, works in a program with women who are in conflict with the law, with drugs and prostitution, the sad part is the women who are in this category are so desperate and think so little of themselves, really, that when they heard about this serial killer, it was like, of course, you're putting your life in danger. You're putting life in danger, but at that point, that doesn't matter to them because their survival, and this is their only way they know to survive. That's why they do need programs that will, in fact, give them some confidence, give them some self-esteem, maybe for the first time in their lives. Many of these women have been abused all of their lives, and in a sense, we continue to abuse them.
Okay, we only have 1 minute, so let's touch on Mercury Marine. It's all over now for the most part. Who's the big winner? The workers, the state? Who's the big winner?
The whole community of Fond du Lac and around. I think they're the big winners because, and obviously they feel the same way. They have invested now $53 million in trying to lure some additional jobs back into the community and stabilize those jobs that they have.
The workers are the winners. The community lost in the sense that they have this new sales tax that was quickly and abruptly enacted without any community input.
I'm surprised that Kevin doesn't think the taxpayers should pay because he thought the workers should pay by, not having raises for 7 years and having a two-tiered pay system. And you're willing to take it out of the hides of the workers. So I think Fond du Lac deserves whatever it gets as far as tax increases. The company obviously did a black bag job on this community. It absolutely did.
A kind of a scary precedent, though, to create a tax for one company. What if Harley says to Milwaukee, we want a tax or we're out of here?
Yeah, I think that's the question that comes about. But I think clearly the city of Fond du Lac won because if those jobs left, it was going to be a domino effect on other jobs that left in the community. And yes, another tax is something that's difficult for people to swallow.
Especially now.
But the reality of it is people now have their jobs. And for that, I think it is something that's good for the city of Fond du Lac.
But if the economy doesn't turn around and if people don't start buying boats pretty soon,
they'll be back in the same situation.
I will say the smart thing they did was to have those penalty clauses in there if jobs leave. I think that was the smart thing that they did in terms
We'll see if it works. All right, back to Washington for just a minute. Even after President Obama's health care speech the other night, the partisan divisions still seem pretty wide. If it isn't some Republican congressman shouting at Obama, it's some conservative talk show host hissing at him. You'd think all that vitriol would concern Rick Horowitz. Think again. Rick.
My friends, I bring good news today. They don't believe a word of it. Those political bigwigs and media titans and titan wannabes who are constantly on the attack against President Obama, accusing him of this, in a tizzy about that, most of them don't believe a word of it, not even a little. Remember how they were all trembling with fear at the mere thought of Barack Obama speaking to the nation's school kids? Indoctrination, they cried. Socialist agenda. You didn't hear too much out of them after the speech, did you? It's not because they changed their minds. It's because even they realized how ridiculous they'd sound if they kept criticizing the president for what? Encouraging kids to work hard, stay in school, do their homework, listen to their parents, respect their teachers, for telling kids to take personal responsibility for living up to their potential. Sounds pretty socialistic to me. If I thought for even a moment that these guys actually believed the nonsense coming out of their mouths, I'd be worried too. Mostly I'd be worried for them, trying to survive with such a loose grip on reality. Do I look worried? Of course not, because I know it's just a show. They don't actually believe that the President of the United States is a socialist tool or a terrorist mole or a Kenyan or a commie or a Nazi. They're saying these things because they think they can get other people to believe them. See, they're desperate to slow this president down, to bring him down. If they can keep him on the defensive, back on his heels, no matter how trivial the issue, that's one for their side. And if it takes fanning the fears of the gullible with myths and distortions, and then using those fears as an excuse to keep spreading the myths and distortions, well, it's all part of the job when you're trying to turn Barack Obama into Barack Pinata. So take heart, my friends. The bigwigs and the titans and the wannabes aren't nearly as clueless, as spineless, as paranoid as they seem to be. It's all an act. Cynical? Manipulative? Intellectually dishonest? That's something else again. See? Don't you feel better?
Well, thank you, Rick, and thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.